The silent observer. The mountain air bit at Alara's cheeks as she adjusted the massive telescope. Tonight marked her third consecutive month at Blackridge Observatory, where isolation was as constant as the stars above. At 28, she had expected her doctorate in astrobiology to lead somewhere more prestigious than this remote outpost. But the unexplained radio frequencies detected here 6 months ago had drawn her like a moth to flame. "Anything interesting tonight?" Dr. Reeves asked, his voice crackling through the intercom. "Nothing yet," Alara replied, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "But the frequency pattern is changing. It's almost rhythmic now." She didn't mention the odd sensation crawling up her spine each time the pattern repeated, a feeling of being watched that had grown stronger over the past week. The computer terminal beeped, pulling her attention to the monitor where green lines pulsed in sequence. Alara leaned forward, her breath fogging in the cold air of the dome. "That's impossible," she whispered, fingers flying across the keyboard. The signal had suddenly intensified, and according to her calculations, it was no longer coming from the distant star system she'd been observing. It was originating much closer. Dr. Reeves appeared at her side, his weathered face illuminated by the screen's glow. "What am I looking at?" The signals changed direction. "It's coming from—" She hesitated, double-checking her work. "Somewhere in the forest below us." He frowned. "Equipment malfunction?" "I've run 3 diagnostics. This is real." Later that night, Alara stood on the observatory's balcony, binoculars trained on the dense forest that blanketed the mountain slopes. The logical part of her brain suggested a military installation or research facility might explain the signals, but government databases showed nothing in the area. A flicker of blue light between the trees caught her attention. It pulsed with the exact frequency pattern she'd recorded earlier. Heart racing, she grabbed her jacket and field kit. The trail down from the observatory was rarely used, becoming more overgrown with each step. Alara switched on her flashlight, trying to ignore how the shadows seemed to shift unnaturally around her. The blue light had vanished, but her handheld detector indicated the signal growing stronger. She pushed through a thicket and stumbled into a small clearing. The air felt different here, charged like before a thunderstorm. In the center stood a perfect circle of mushrooms glowing faintly with bioluminescence. Alara approached cautiously, scientific curiosity overwhelming her unease. As she knelt to examine the fungi, her detector went wild. The mushrooms pulsed in sequence with the signal. She reached out, hesitant, and touched one cap with a gentle finger. Images flashed through her mind. Stars seen from unfamiliar angles. Landscapes with impossible colors and eyes watching Earth from a great distance. Alara jerked her hand away, gasping. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Reeves. "Return immediately. Signal patterns changing dramatically. Potential breakthrough." As she stood, something rustled in the underbrush beyond the clearing. Alara froze, flashlight beam sweeping across the trees. For a moment, she thought she saw a figure watching her, neither fully human nor animal in shape. "Hello?" she called, voice barely above a whisper. The forest fell unnaturally silent. Even the wind stopped. Then a twig snapped behind her, and Alara ran, the sense of being followed pushing her faster up the mountain trail. Back in the observatory, she locked the door behind her, trying to calm her breathing. On her recorder, she spoke quietly. "Field note 1. I believe we're not observing the stars anymore. They're observing us." Outside, beyond the observatory's lights, the forest pulsed with hidden life, and somewhere among the ancient trees something waited, something that had crossed unimaginable distances with a warning for Earth. Shadows among trees. 3 days after her encounter in the forest, Alara found herself returning to the clearing. Dr. Reeves had dismissed her findings as stress-induced hallucinations, but the data remained irrefutable. Something in these woods was communicating in patterns identical to those from deep space. The mushroom circle had expanded since her last visit, now nearly 12 feet in diameter. As she photographed the phenomenon, a twig snapped behind her. "This area is restricted to authorized personnel," a deep voice announced. Alara whirled to find a tall man in a forest ranger uniform watching her with guarded interest. His dark hair fell carelessly across his forehead, and the name badge on his jacket read Theodore Mason. "I have authorization," she replied, showing her observatory ID. I'm conducting research on unusual biological phenomena connected to my work. His eyes, an unusual amber color, narrowed. You're from the observatory? The one picking up strange frequencies? How do you know about that? He approached cautiously, keeping a respectful distance. Because I've been tracking unusual occurrences in this forest for months. Animals behaving erratically, plants growing in impossible patterns. He gestured to the mushroom circle, and these appearing overnight after meteor showers. Something in his manner made Alara trust him. I'm Alara Chen, astrobiologist. Theo, he offered. Former military, current forest ranger, though lately I feel more like a detective. He knelt beside the mushrooms, careful not to touch them. 2 hikers went missing near a circle like this last month. Search teams found nothing, but their equipment was left behind, arranged in a perfect geometric pattern. Ilara's pulse quickened. I need to show you something. She led him to a small ridge overlooking the valley where she'd set up monitoring equipment. Her tablet displayed real-time measurements from both the forest and the night sky. See these patterns? She pointed to synchronized waves. The signals I'm detecting from space match exactly what's emanating from those mushrooms. It's like they're responding to each other. Theo studied the display, brow furrowed. I'm no scientist, but that doesn't seem possible. It isn't, according to everything we understand about physics and biology. Ilara ran a hand through her hair. Yet here we are. As darkness fell, they continued comparing notes near the mushroom circle. Ilara described the vision she'd experienced upon touching the fungi, while Theo shared stories of strange lights and unexplained phenomena reported by locals over the past year. Most dismissed it as superstition, he said, warming his hands over the small campfire he'd built. But I've seen enough to know something is happening. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by night sounds and the occasional crackle of the fire. Ilara found herself studying his profile, noting the small scar above his right eyebrow and the thoughtful set of his mouth. Why did you leave the military? She asked suddenly. Theo's expression darkened briefly. I was part of a special reconnaissance unit. We were sent to investigate an unidentified object that crashed in the Arctic. What we found, he trailed off, looking up at the stars. Let's just say I started asking questions my superiors didn't want answered. Before Ilara could respond, her equipment began beeping urgently. The mushroom circle had started to glow, pulsing with increasing intensity. That's new, Theo murmured, standing slowly. The air in the center of the circle shimmered like heat waves over asphalt. Ilara's instruments registered a massive energy spike, and the forest around them fell completely silent. We should, she began, but never finished the thought. A flash of blue-white light erupted from the circle, momentarily blinding them both. When their vision cleared, a figure stood in the center of the glowing mushrooms, humanoid but undeniably alien, with skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water, and eyes that reflected starlight in impossible ways. Theo instinctively moved in front of Ilara, but she stepped forward, scientific curiosity overriding fear. The being regarded them with an expression that might have been curiosity or concern. Then it spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through the air. I am Nyx. I have come to warn you. Your world is in danger. The visitor's warning dawn found the 3 of them in Theo's cabin, a rustic outpost nestled among towering pines halfway down the mountain. Nyx sat perfectly still by the window, iridescent skin reflecting the morning light in prismatic patterns as Ilara and Theo struggled to process what they'd learned through the night. Let me understand, Ilara said, pacing the worn wooden floor. You're saying that something is coming? Some kind of cosmic barrier that destroys civilizations? Nyx's head tilted in what they'd come to recognize as affirmation. It has consumed 17 known worlds before yours. My people call it the Silence. It appears as a wave of energy that disrupts all technology and communication, followed by atmospheric degradation that makes planetary surfaces uninhabitable. And your people? Theo asked from where he leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed defensively. Observers, watchers of patterns across galaxies. Nyx's eyes shifted color as they spoke, from deep violet to something beyond blue. We detected the barrier's approach to your solar system 3 of your years ago, and have been attempting to establish contact since. Ilara sank into a chair. The signals we've been receiving, Yes, warning beacons calibrated to penetrate dimensional barriers using quantum resonance. Few species develop the technology to detect them in time. Theo's expression remained skeptical. If this threat is real, why come to us? Why not go to world governments, the United Nations? Previous attempts to contact centralized authorities on threatened worlds have failed. Those in power rarely accept truths that challenge their understanding or authority. Nix's gaze fixed on Alara. But you listened to the stars. You found the connection point. The mycelial network responded to your consciousness. Outside, a deer appeared at the forest's edge, cautiously approaching the cabin. As it neared, it stopped, staring directly at the window where Nix sat. More animals emerged from the trees, rabbits, foxes, birds landing on branches, all watching the cabin with unnatural focus. They sense your presence, Alara whispered. All life is connected through networks you are only beginning to understand. Nix replied. The fungi you discovered are nodes in a communication system that spans galaxies, planted on promising worlds eons ago by travelers who came before even my kind. Theo moved to the window, watching the gathering animals. How long do we have? The barrier will reach your atmosphere in 9 days. Once it begins, there is no stopping it, unless you help me establish a planetary defense. Alara and Theo exchanged glances. Despite the fantastical nature of Nix's claims, the evidence surrounded them, from the synchronized signals to the inexplicable behavior of local wildlife. What do you need from us? Alara asked. Access to your observatory's transmission equipment and protection. Nix's form shimmered slightly. My presence here is already being detected by your military. They will not understand my purpose. As if summoned by these words, the distant sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the valley. Theo moved quickly, grabbing backpacks and supplies. Back roads through the forest will get us to the observatory undetected. But we need to move now. As they prepared to leave, Alara found herself standing close to Theo, their hands accidentally brushing as they reached for the same item. A current seemed to pass between them, something new and unexpected amid the chaos. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Once we help an extraterrestrial evade government detection, there's no going back to normal life. Alara thought of her quiet existence before the signals, the predictable career path she'd envisioned. I'm not sure normal was ever what I wanted anyway. As they slipped into the forest, the animals parted to create a path. Above them, military helicopters passed overhead, searchlights sweeping the trees. Behind them, the cabin stood empty, except for a perfect circle of mushrooms that had mysteriously appeared overnight on the living room floor. Broken reflections. The government facility hummed with activity as Alara was escorted through sterile corridors. 3 days had passed since military personnel had surrounded her cabin and taken the trio into custody. They'd been separated immediately, Theo to one wing, Nix to another, and Alara here, in what they called protective isolation. Dr. Reeves spoke highly of your work, said Director Harlow, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair who now sat across from Alara. Which is why I find it difficult to understand how someone with your credentials could be so thoroughly deceived. Alara leaned forward. I've shown you the data. The atmospheric disturbances, the signal patterns, they match exactly what Nix described. What this Nix described, Harlow corrected, is a convenient fiction. Our analysts believe your visitor is part of an elaborate espionage operation, possibly North Korean or Chinese in origin. That's absurd, Alara said, frustration mounting. You've examined Nix. You know no human could. We know advanced prosthetics and genetic manipulation exist, Harlow interrupted. What we don't know is why you're protecting someone clearly attempting to create panic with these doomsday predictions. A knock at the door brought in a technician with a tablet. Harlow reviewed it, her expression hardening. Interesting. Your ranger friend is suddenly being more cooperative. Alara's stomach tightened. What have you done to Theo? Simply helped him see reason. He's admitted to helping stage evidence of extraterrestrial presence in exchange for research funding from an unnamed private entity. Harlow slid the tablet across. See for yourself. On screen was Theo, looking exhausted but unharmed, signing a statement. Alara's hands trembled as she recognized the betrayal taking shape. This is fabricated, she whispered. We'll release you both if you corroborate his statement. Simple as that. Later in her monitored room, Alara paced restlessly. The walls seemed to close in with each passing hour. A soft knock preceded a guard bringing dinner, and unexpectedly, "Theo, 10 minutes," the guard said before closing the door. They embraced desperately, Theo's familiar scent momentarily pushing back her fear. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low. "They told me you'd confessed to falsifying data." Ilara pulled back, searching his face. "They told me the same about you." Understanding passed between them. "Divide and conquer," Theo murmured. "Have you seen Nyx?" He shook his head. "They're keeping Nyx in some kind of containment chamber. I overheard them discussing biological anomalies and unprecedented cellular structure. We need to reach Nyx. The time frame, I know." Theo ran a hand through his disheveled hair. 4 days until the advance wave hits our atmosphere. If we can't warn people, then millions die, Ilara finished. But how do we escape? Theo's expression shifted to something she hadn't seen before, a determined calculation. "I was military before forestry. Special ops. There are protocols, weaknesses, and even the best security systems." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "I never expected any of this when I found you in the forest that night. But Ilara, I need you to know." "I know," she said softly, resting her forehead against his. "Whatever happens, I don't regret any of it." That night, as predicted, the power fluctuated briefly, maintenance systems resetting at exactly 2:15 a.m. In those 40 seconds of darkness, Theo disabled the electronic lock from the inside using components from Ilara's confiscated equipment. They moved silently through darkened corridors, following the memorized path to Nyx's containment area. An alarm blared suddenly, red lights washing the hallways. "They've discovered we're gone," Ilara said. Reaching the laboratory wing, they found 2 guards unconscious outside a shattered containment chamber. Inside, surrounded by broken equipment and sparking wires, stood Nyx, different somehow, more luminescent, eyes glowing with internal light. "The barrier approaches," Nyx said, voice resonating strangely. "We must reach the transmission point." As guards shouted in the distance, the 3 fled through emergency exits into the night, running toward the mountains where it had all begun, where Earth's last hope waited beneath ancient trees that had witnessed civilizations rise and fall across countless millennia. Beyond the horizon, dawn broke over the mountains as Ilara, Theo, and Nyx reached the forest clearing. Military helicopters thundered in the distance, searchlights cutting through lingering darkness. They had perhaps an hour before they would be discovered. "This is where it must happen," Nyx said, moving to the center of the clearing. The bioluminescent mushroom ring had expanded dramatically, now nearly 30 feet in diameter. "The mycelial network extends throughout this planet. It will carry our warning." Ilara knelt beside the glowing fungi. "You're saying these mushrooms can transmit a planetary alert?" "They are merely conduits," Nyx explained. "Ancient species planted them on thousands of worlds as communication networks. Your people have barely begun to understand their capabilities." Theo kept watch at the clearing's edge. "Whatever we're doing, we need to hurry." Nyx removed a crystalline object from within their robes, something that seemed to exist in more dimensions than Ilara's eyes could process. "This contains the frequency that will disrupt the barrier. Once activated, it must be connected to your planet's electromagnetic field." "The observatory," Ilara realized. "The equipment there could amplify the signal globally." Nyx nodded. "But one must remain here to stabilize the mycelial connection." "I cannot do both." Understanding dawned in Ilara's eyes. "You need one of us to stay." "I'll do it," Theo said immediately, turning from his lookout position. Ilara shook her head. "No, I understand the scientific principles. It has to be me." Their eyes met, months of unspoken feelings suddenly urgent and precious. "There's another way," Theo insisted, moving closer. "No," Nyx interjected gently. "The one who connects becomes part of the network, permanently." Silence fell between them, broken only by distant helicopter rotors growing louder. Ilara reached for Theo's hand. "I need you to get Nyx to the observatory. You know the mountain paths better than anyone. Ilara, please." His voice broke. She touched his face. "Some choices define us, Theo. This is mine." Their kiss held everything they might have been in another life. Mornings waking beside each other, shared meals, laughter, arguments reconciled beneath starlight. When they parted, tears traced silent paths down both their faces. "Go," she whispered. Watching them disappear into the forest, Ilara turned to the glowing circle. She stepped carefully into its center, feeling energy pulsing upward through her body. The mushrooms brightened in response to her presence, light spiraling around her legs. As military forces breached the forest's edge, Ilara knelt and placed her palms against the earth. The mycelial network welcomed her consciousness, expanding her awareness across continents beneath oceans, connecting her to every living thing that shared this world. At the observatory, Nyx and Theo worked frantically to integrate the crystal with Earth technology. When the connection completed, a pulse of energy surged from the mountain peak, rippling outward to encircle the planet. High above, the invisible barrier, harbinger of destruction, encountered the pulse. Light erupted across the sky in patterns of impossible beauty, visible from every corner of Earth. The barrier dissipated, its energy harmlessly absorbed by the planetary shield Ilara's sacrifice had created. In the clearing, Director Harlow found only a perfect circle of wildflowers where Ilara had stood. At their center lay a single crystalline seed pulsing with gentle light. "What happened here?" she demanded. Theo, returning alone, knelt beside the flowers. "She became what we needed, Earth's champion when no one else would listen." He looked up at the sky where aurora-like lights continued to dance. "And she'll be watching over us for a very long time." 1 year later, observatories worldwide reported a new star appearing in previously empty space, a star that pulsed with a familiar pattern that Theo recognized immediately. He smiled, knowing that somewhere beyond human understanding, Ilara continued her observations, no longer merely witnessing the cosmos, but part of its eternal dance. In forests around the world, circles of luminous flowers began to grow, each one a whispered reminder that Earth's greatest strength had always been those willing to speak for it when others remained silent.